All right, so welcome to first Nomad Gao Connect after the lockdown. Uh, so Nomad Gao was started last year to connect people, to get the professionals and freelancers out there coming together, collaborating, and you know making new connections and friends. Uh, the COVID pandemic had changed a lot of things, and I think one of the biggest change is the accelerated move towards gig economy. So today we have Praveen here. Uh, Praveen left his corporate career back in 2016 to be a freelancer. So he has over 4 years of experience in freelancing, and he has learned his way, getting new clients, getting international clients, raising your rate, getting more money out of freelancing, and he's also uh, releasing an online course. You have already released, or? Yeah, so Praveen has released an online course also on freelancing. So I won't take much time. I'll hand over the mic to Praveen to talk about freelancing and the gig economy. So off to you, Praveen.
Thank you, Mayur, for having me and the warm introduction. So today we'll be giving a talk on, I'll giving a small talk on freelancing and the gig economy. And just a couple disclaimers. All the views are only mine and they're not of any clients or any company that I'm associated with. And the second is a lot of this is also based on survivorship bias. Just because I did it does not mean that it has a lot of pattern biases of my experience in it. So please take all the nuggets or wisdom or tactics that I give with a small hint of bias. And remember that it's always my opinions are biased. So you have to use it in the current context and this scenario because things change every year and every few months. So the one main question when I go to talks or TED talks or anything is that like who the hell am I? Why am I even sharing this thing? And then why am I even eligible to share this? So the thing is I've been working on freelancing for the last 4 years, and currently I'm a top-rated plus freelancer on Upwork, and it's been an interesting journey over the last 4 years of growing from a small 2-3 clients which I was juggling along with my corporate job to getting to enterprise international clients like Upwork itself. And one small email I got in January 2020 was crossing the $100K mark on freelancing. So I think that's an interesting milestone. And only after that, I saw the pandemic and the results happening in all my friends' careers dropping, cash flows dropping, and things happening. And only then I started teaching or helping other people in how to start freelance and why should you even freelance. So I think the first thing that you should think about is why should you even do freelancing. So this is a small simple note I made back in 2016, like why should I even freelance, like what is the whole thing. So the main thing was just to have control over life, to travel, to be a digital nomad, to basically find out work and do work that I really enjoy, and to not be dependent on clocks of employers or on rates of employers and all these things. I wanted independence, location independence, time independence, and eventually financial independence. So I've achieved time and location somewhat, but financial is of course a long way to go. It's an ongoing journey always. And moving on, we'll jump to another main reason of why we even freelance. So with your employer or with your single salary, you're always like a single table with a single rod, and it can fall anytime, which is what happened in 2020 and in the pandemic. You showed that having one source of income is extremely unreliable. You cannot have that for a very, very long time of time. It's not sustainable. It's not reliable, if you, especially if you have a family and if you have kids and if you have multiple EMIs and things like that. This is me, very happy when I left my job back in Mu Sigma in 2016. And I think it was Independence Day. I planned it like that I would leave my job on Independence Day on August 13th, 14th around, which is India's Independence Day also. And how I reached there is from January, I started a side project. Like, let me see if this freelance thing even works. I was learning from an online mentor, and trying to get online clients on Upwork and Freelancer and multiple websites. Fiverr, yes, Fiverr is another big one. So Upwork is where I got my first client in March, and moving forward, I got 3 amazing clients moving from March to June, July, and that's when I realized that I have enough cash flow and enough capital saved to actually leave my full-time job and pursue freelancing for full-time. So I had one normal thing I tell everyone is that you should always have 6 to 12 months of savings as cash in your bank account or in your liquid funds, so that if you leave your job, you're okay for at least a year if things don't work out, and you can always go get a different job, right? So I had those things set, and only then I dropped out, and I was really happy on the first few months and first few days. But it actually seemed like this. This is Alex Honnold from Free Solo. He has a world record of climbing the El Capitan mountain without any ropes, without anything, just by using his hands. And that's what it felt like after 3 to 6 months, by being freelancing alone, and you're just in your room working. There's no team, there's no manager, there's no fixed salary, there's no fixed income. So this is what it felt like 6 months into my journey. And so moving to how I eventually raised my rates, how I eventually got the international clients, and how I avoided the FFC. So this is what I was going through in the first year, and this is what many freelancers go through in the first year. I call it the freelancing frustration cycle. So when you start off freelancing, you can't initially charge extremely high rates, or you can, but it's not very practical to do that, or get like really large clients. So what people do is they charge very low, especially in India and Eastern Europe. This is where the $1 to $10 per hour rates go a lot viral, right? This is where they charge very, very low rates. They think that the clients would be like hell bent on hiring and finding cheap talent, and I'll show you why they are not at the end. But they charge low rates, they work for long hours, they are always finding new jobs, and which results in low energy and always tired. This is what, like, I think 90% of freelancers are, which is why freelancing and the gig economy is really bad named, right? I mean, if you imagine a huge pool where maximum people are low paid and getting low jobs and are working all the time, you would assume that the industry is really bad because of that, right? So these are a few things that I did right and few things that I did wrong initially. And this is like a very simple basic rule of what not to do versus what to do. So one is, of course, you have to understand which type of clients are right for you and which type of clients are not right for you. That is like crucial. And finding your dream client avatar is spending time in designing that takes a lot of time, but it takes a lot of experience. You have to it's a famous saying called, you have to eat a few frogs first. So in the initial days, you have to work with a few wrong clients, a few bad clients, and then you understand who your elephants are, or the big clients are. So that's how you get those knack of finding the right clients. And then eventually the other thing is to failing to keep those clients. Finding a new client takes almost 10x time or 8x of your time than keeping your old client. So and you're not paid to find new clients. So you have to understand to keep your clients. It should be long-term projects, it should be retainers, and you should extend it for as long as possible and is mutually beneficial for you and the client both, of course. If it's not, please end it and move on to bigger or better clients. And then the last one is crucial, which has helped me a lot, is reversing the game. So I want to give an example here. Like, imagine going to a pub and a woman approaches you instead of you approaching women or you hitting on women. Generally, it is the de facto rule that men hit on women and all that, right? But imagine you go to a pub and there are 3 women coming to you. This is what I want to portray in freelancing. You have to create a profile and you have to create a website such that the clients come to you and you don't have to go to them, right? This is like classic inbound marketing role. And that's where the magic starts to happen, where the clients come to you, you can demand any rate you want and you can demand any hours you want. So that's crucial in growing in freelancing or in any type of client services role. Moving on, this is an important Venn diagram that you have to do because I think that freelancing is a very easy way to transition to self-employment. You don't have to build an online business, build an e-commerce store, build an app, or build multiple new things, or learn 100 different things. You can just learn, you already have the skills, and you have to focus on the demand in market and your ideal future work. If you understand what the demand in the market is and what you want to work on, and the sweet spot lies between the demand, your ideal future work, and your current skill sets. And if you find that, if you define your niche within that, that is when you can actually, again, command higher rates, get more invites, get more clients to come to you, and so on. And I think the basic strategy that I showcase is that this can be done in 3 to 6 months, like I did back in March. Of course, survivorship bias is important. So plan your own path differently than I did, because things are different in 2020. Every marketplace, freelance marketplace, has grown like crazy. You can check out Fiverr stock, you can check out Upwork stock and see what has happened. These are both publicly listed IPO companies in the US, NASDAQ. And just look at the stock prices, see what happened. Why are they rising? They are rising only because a lot of freelancers, a lot of clients have suddenly moved to the remote and gig economy in 2020. There's a reason it's happening, right? You cannot go to offices anymore because of the pandemic. So things have been accelerated by 5 to 10 years, which means it's still not too late, but it's a different game right now. So keep those things in mind. But a proper 3 to 6 month work that you do strategically by getting your first client, getting the first few reviews, and then raising rates consistently. Like I personally started with $7 per hour. I had put my freelancing rate as $11 or $12 per hour. And here's a simple hack of calculating what price you want to use as hourly rate. Just divide. In India, we don't have this concept of hourly rate. I was just watching a Kunal Shah video, and he constantly says that people just don't know. Like you go to the road and ask anyone, what's your hourly rate? Nobody knows this, right? They all know their salary, their package, all these things. So divide your salary or package of the year by 2,000 and you get your hourly rate. If it's 10 lakh, it becomes 5,000 or 2,500 or something like that. So just divide by 2,000 and you get it. And by 2,000 is the average number of hours you work in a year. So just divide that and you get your hourly rate. And I started with $7 per hour, and I've raised it over the last 4 years to $75 to $100 per hour, depending on which client I'm working with and which project I'm doing with. And my aspirational hourly rate, which is a wisdom nugget from Naval Ravikant, is 10x of what I actually charge. Like this is what I want to charge in future, in 5-10 years, is around $750 to $1,000 per hour. I want my 1 hour to be worth $750 to $1,000 per hour. And I'm on a path to actually achieve that if I do the right things in the next 5 to 10 years. Naval Ravikant, when he was starting out and begging in the Indian streets, he's an Indian, he put his aspirational hourly rate as $5,000 per hour. So you should not choose small when you're putting an aspirational hourly rate. Choose as high and as big as you want. And after you get your first few clients, you can always consistently raise your rates, get amazing reviews and testimonials from your clients. And as you increase the value that you're providing to your client, the rates will automatically increase. You can do 10% to 10x. The problem with 10% increases in salary is that there's always inflation. So a 10% increase means that you're only increasing your rates by 3% in India, where the inflation is 7%. So you should always focus on how you can 10x your income, which is what my goal was when I started freelancing, and I've achieved it. And it's pretty straightforward. You consistently raise your rates and you get better projects, better clients, and better the entire atmosphere of work. And then the final concept is about your niche, which I spoke before. If you look at the Venn diagram, again, your demand, market research is the key. You find out what the demand is in the marketplace, and you find out where your skill sets are and where your ideal future work projects are, and you find a merger of those three things, and that's where you find your niche. And the last nugget is that you versus I mindset, which I keep telling everyone, that nobody really cares about you, no clients care about you. So this is a common example I give to everyone. If you go to any freelancing platform and you look at the freelancer profile, everyone will say that I have 10 years experience, I have 20 years experience, I know these many languages, I know Java, C#, and whatnot, right? I've done 25 certificates and all, but the client does not care. They give zero fucks, zero shits about your your experience. What they care is how good can you do the project, how well can you deliver, how well can you communicate with them. So that's what you want to portray. In my profile, and I teach people in designing freelancing profiles, I tell them to talk about your dream client and not about your experience. Of course, mention about your experience at the end. Should not be a complete nothing about your experience. Mention about your experience, but talk more to your dream client. Talk about the fears, hopes, and dreams of your dream client, because that's when they'll continue reading. They'll be like, holy shit, he knows so much about me. He's my perfect freelancer that I need to hire. So yeah, I think that's one huge nugget that really helped me jump from, small hourly rates to bigger projects from $10,000 plus and bigger projects. So I think these are some big important nuggets that you should keep in mind when you're freelancing. And you should always focus on improving your value to the clients, improving your marketing engine, improving the hourly rates, and then so on. So I think that's it. My free 5-day course is also live. I'll share the links in the YouTube video, and they should be below. And you can go sign up for this and then get all these nuggets in your inbox itself. And yeah, that's it for the course. We are now open for any questions that the audience has. Anyone has any questions? Give the mic to me. You have to come in.
So you mentioned about how. So you mentioned about how it takes a lot of time to kind of get a new client, right? And it's not you're not even getting paid for it. So do you have any insights on probably how much time should we devote on getting the new clients, and what should be the approach to kind of, from your experience, what you've seen and what you've experienced, that what works well for you in the freelancing world might kind of save us time for the new freelancers who's trying to get a job, has one client, but trying to get more, in the market. So something like that. Can you throw a light on that, please?
Yeah, great question. So I think hiring has always been a tough decision. So I would say that reverse the role and put yourself in the client's shoes. Hiring is a tough decision, so make it easy for your clients to hire. So how can you make it easy? You can give them a portfolio that you have of similar projects that you've done in the past. That the project that you're going to work on, that would make their decision easier, because they can see, oh, he or she has already done that work before. So he can definitely at least move forward in the project, or at least make progress, right? And then the second is you can provide reviews and testimonials. Even if you've done no projects, you can provide reviews and testimonials of your coworkers, of your previous employers to your client, and you can showcase that as to showcase your work ethic, and then how you work and collaborate with people and with clients. And these things will make the decision-making process very easier for the client. And there's no need to hard sell. You can always, I try to avoid any type of hard selling, even in the start. You can always do this as a side thing with your job that you're doing. And always focus on using psychology and making the decision easier for the client itself. So yeah. Any other questions?
Let's say a client has asked for a portfolio, or we are sending it to a potential client. And is it a good strategy to send the entire, if you have a versatile range of work, send it to him or her, or just the thing which you think he or she wants?
Yeah, great point. So assume clients have zero time, right? They're all running businesses. They are so busy, packed, right? Like even I've hired freelancers right now, and I'm busy, right? And and hiring is a tough decision. So combine all these things. You should only send very specific targeted portfolio, not the work that you've been doing for the last 10, 20 years, right? Because imagine from a client's shoes, they will have to go through, let's say that you're doing writing, right? So they'll have to go through 20 Google Docs, right? That's not possible for them. But let's say that they are hiring for writing for a health fitness niche, and you've written something for gyms before, or you've written something for saunas before, and you send that. So that's perfect. They can see that, oh, he's already written and he has experience in the same industry that I'm hiring. So that will increase the probability to much higher. It's even called something. I think a lot of this content I shared is from one of my mentors, online mentors, called Danny Margulies. You can check out his blog, and he's a very big famous copywriter. and he calls it, I forget the name that he calls it, but it's like this beautiful name he's got of this tactic. I can't recall the name, but that's the thing. You have to always, whenever you're sharing anything with the client, yes, and and the proposal should be as small as possible, as targeted as possible, and it should demand authority. And it should showcase your work done in as quick as possible, right? Proposal should not be as long, like 3 pages, right? No one's going to read that. No one has time for that. So yeah, make sure you send specific targeted proposals for any client, because assume they are super busy. Yeah. Any other questions?
What about the personalized website? Should we create it? Because if you are saying that we should give them the content that they want, actually means the industry they are looking into it. But if we give them a personal link of our portfolio, so it has everything. It doesn't have any sections that we can actually give them to. So what about your views on it?
So I also have case studies in my website and all that. So the only thing is to demarcate them, right? You can change or write a new blog or edit your website such that each blog post or each thing caters to one industry that you work for, right? Let's say you cater to 10 industries, right? You will have to separate it out, because the problem is if you send something that you've done for everyone, the probability reduces compared to someone else like him who would send a very targeted proposal, right? Or a very targeted thing. Let's say you've built a website for gyms, right? Someone else would know what the problems are inside gyms, what the visitors face problems and all that, right? But the others will not know that. So it's always better to send specific targeted ones. And you can always edit your website. You can always edit these things and make sure that there are different themes for different audiences. Yeah. Yes, basically.
So, like, I don't have much experience on freelancing, but from what I've seen is there are so many like platforms which are available. There is Upwork, there is Fiverr, there is Elance, Freelance, whatever, right? So, which platform should we just focus on one platform and keep building the profile there, or should we just try to, like, because I don't know the difference exactly on what the different platforms have. So for you, if you are more of a data scientist, like, maybe it makes more sense for you to be on Upwork, but for him maybe it could be more of Fiverr with the writing things, right? So how do you identify which platform is best for you, and how do you focus on one of them?
Yeah, this is a great question. So of course the big ones will have everything, but it all depends on where your dream client lies. So you have to portray your dream client or who they are. Of course, there's a probability that they can lie on each platform, right? Or every platform. And especially what's happening now is, so Upwork, Fiverr are the top world leaders, of course, because you can see that they're publicly traded companies, they have stock prices and all that, and they have multiple categories and subcategories. Like writing is a big category in both Upwork and Fiverr. I can say that just because I've seen that, right? And data science and analytics, the reason I chose Upwork is because my target was eventually enterprises, which was the work I was doing back in Mu Sigma when I was doing my job, right? Because they also targeted enterprises. But in writing, you might not target enterprises. You could even target small businesses or medium businesses or any type of businesses. And I've worked with small, medium businesses too. So it depends. Number one, where your dream client lies. Number two, where you can get the clients fastest. Now, how would you get that? Of course, Upwork, Fiverr being so popular, it would take time for you to get clients and become known because of all the existing thing. So there are many niche marketplaces coming up. Niche marketplaces meaning there'll be a freelancer client marketplace just for writing or just for data science, like Experfy. If you want to do data science and analytics clients, you can go to Experfy, or TopTal has that. So TopTal is only for coding, heavily coding, right? So these are niche marketplaces that you can go, and there are many more for writing and different niches of writing, because even writing is a huge category. Yes, there are many. So TopTal is mainly for developers, developers and data a little bit, but mainly developers and data scientists are the main crowd. So you have to find out where your dream client lies and how fast you can get your clients in your first project. And of course, you can match what was. Even when I was trying, I opened my my profile in 3-4 platforms, and I tested for a month which works best. For me, Upwork worked back then. So again, survivorship bias, what will work now is a great question. That's where the market testing will start. You have to do your research right now, what's working right now in the field, and which place is where, which marketplace will work best for you. Or even sometimes what's happening right now is also there are Facebook groups, Reddit threads, and all these are opening up. So you can even get your first client on a Facebook group, niche Facebook group, niche Slack group, niche Reddit threads. You can go and just add value to people, help people for free, and suddenly you'll get a paying client. That's how magic happens, right? Initially, you have to add value for free in the online world, because right now there's a lot of scammers, a lot of freelancers who don't value their work or who don't give high quality work. So you can go anywhere on the online space, because the online world has become so huge right now. Anyone can create their own school or their own space, right? So you have to do your market research and find out where your ideal client lies and where you can get your projects fastest. And then you enter that market like a Swiss knife. So yeah, and then you create your own niche and all that. Yeah, sure.
Do you think having a website is important?
So yes, so it will definitely help you having a website, even a .com. I opened my .com website, I think almost 6 months into freelancing. I didn't have that before, right? Full disclosure, I did not have a website before. I even was using Gmail, like my own Gmail ID, for I think 6 to 12 months of the website. And one day a client was asking, hey bro, he was like, are you using Gmail? Are you really running a business? I'm like, whoa, good one. So, and because I was trying to raise my rates too, right, at this time, and I'm trying to get better clients. You can't get like $100 per hour clients and run Gmail, right? I mean, by Gmail, I mean your email ID is at Gmail. You should at least have something at website.com, right? That's the main thing. That shows professionalism. That shows you're committed to your business, right? So after that's when I started my website. So initial first few jobs, I don't think you need a website. Just test and see what's happening. Are you even getting clients? Are you even enjoying freelancing? So initially, no. But 3 to 6 months beyond, when you're trying to raise rates and when you're trying to get bigger clients, better projects, then yes, a website will always help you. It will build credibility. It will even get you inbound leads if you do right SEO, if you do right marketing, if you do the right channels and all that. And of course, for building your portfolio, as he rightly said, right? Because that's where you can showcase it. But initially, you can just set up, there are so many free templater things where you can just set up your portfolio on a one-pager website, right? I think Summary, there are many of those. Of course, that is not the most professional. Yes. Yes. Yep, exactly. Yeah. So initially not heavily recommend, but yeah, as you go up the ladder, like imagine getting like Facebook as your client and you don't have a website, right? They'll be like, come on, man. Right? Or even at a medium level, they'll question your email IDs. And plus, even I work in data analytics. I need to keep the data secure always. I sign an NDA with all my clients, right? If I leak data or if something happens, I can be sued. so that's crucial. You have another question?
So how to stay motivated and focused, or I don't have a better word, but yeah, when there's no ROI in the offing, when there's no ROI in the near future.
Basically, the difference between
Yes.
a full-time job.
Yes. Yeah, so I just got an interesting insight on this a couple days back. I was just writing on my journal. So the first year of anything that you start or new thing you start, or it could be freelancing, it could be any business, it could be anything, the money is going to be the least. Okay, and that was the same for me. I did the numbers after 6 to 12 months of freelancing, and now since I work in data analytics, I do all my numbers. I have every revenue profit that I get every week and every month, I have that in a sheet. So I can track my own income and my own cash flow, right? And I tracked it after the first year of my freelancing. I was like, holy shit, why did I leave my job? Like I'm getting paid a little less than what I was getting paid. But now I'm on year 3, year 4, and I've almost, I can say 10x whatever my income was in my job, right? Almost 10 times, right? And that was my initial goal. So these results only compound 3 to 4 years into the journey and not in the first few years. So that should be your main mindset. What will happen in the 3rd year or 4th year? Sure.
As you said, 900 days planned, right? Yeah, but how do you manage your like work-life balance in those days? Were you focused on totally the work only, or were you managing your time, your free time and everything?
Yeah, great.
Basically psychological
Yeah, great question. So I think the first 6 months was crucial. So I said, I'm not sure I mentioned, I started my freelancing along with my job. It's strictly speaking not very legal, but you can do it, of course. Your employer would not mind unless you're taking the clients from your workplace itself, right? I mean, if you don't do that, you're just earning more income. Of course, if it's in your clause, then please check and do your due diligence. None of all my views are personal. So the thing was, the first 6 months was in January 2016 to August 2016, and that's when I did it with my job itself. So it was crazy. I was working 80 to 100 hour weeks. I had no social life, no going out. Maybe on a Sunday I'll go for a walk or something, right? So it was crazy. It was absolutely nuts, because March is when I got my first client, and then I got my second, third client in coming months, and I was doing an 8-hour Mu Sigma job, which we both know how crazy it is. Along with that, I was coming back at home, having dinner and working from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. every day. But I was only doing it because I was looking at the larger picture, right? You cannot work from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. if you don't look at the larger picture and the ROI beyond that. And now I can travel anywhere and work like maybe 4 hours a day, or even less, or 6 hours a day, right? But only because I had that vision in mind, I was able to do that. And then after 6 months, the next 6 months were, so first 6 months was chaotic. First year was chaotic. I did not know what to do, how to do. Eventually I found the rhythm by second or third year. Is what I do is I stay 6 to 8 months in my home base, which is Bangalore. And then the next 3-4 months I travel, maybe outside India, maybe inside India, wherever there's a co-working space, there's a co-living space. And I make sure I travel to co-working, co-living spaces so I can meet more people, interact with them, also travel and explore my adventures, whatever I want to do. So I'm doing a dual benefit of my career too, by meeting like-minded people, attending the good conferences and investing in myself basically. And also, of course, having fun, enjoying life, right? So yeah, this is my main suggestion, to find your own rhythm, and having a routine and discipline really helped me massively. And another big point I would say is this 1991 rule from Robin Sharma that I followed religiously. I still follow it right now. So the first 90 minutes that I spend every day is on my business. That means I'm not doing any client's work at that time. No client is more important than my own self and my own business. Call it ego, call it anything, but it's huge. So the first 90 minutes every day is probably the biggest thing that I need to do in the next 6 months or for my 12 months goal. So for any freelancer starting out, in the first year, my first 90 minutes was spent on building pipeline. By pipeline, I mean, let's say I am working with one client right now, but this project might end in October. What do I do in December or November, right? So I'm finding new clients, or I'm building new portfolio, or I'm talking to new people who can eventually become new clients from November, December, or from next year. So that's called building a pipeline. And I'm keeping a spreadsheet of every client I've spoken to. In the first year, second year, I did more than 150 calls with clients, and I converted like 10 of them, right, in the first 2 years. But I have voice recordings and notes of every 150 clients I spoke with, because that helped me understand more about what my clients want, what my dream client is, what are their hopes, fears, and dreams. And all these helped me in designing my profile, and then writing the copy of my website, my profile, and all those things, and then talking to them better, basically, right? So these are a few things that help with your routine, discipline, and all those things. Yeah. Cool. Any more final questions before we wrap it up? None? Cool. Thanks everyone for attending, and happy to add more value. You can always sign up for my 5-day email course and come to Nomad Go if you want to enjoy life and work remotely. Cool.
Thank you so